The Forgetting Room. Chapter 1. The Patient. My name is Dr. Nora Reeves, and I specialise in helping people remember what they've forgotten, which makes it particularly terrifying that I'm starting to forget things I know I should remember. I'm a cognitive neurologist at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York, focusing on memory disorders, Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, traumatic brain injuries, dissociative amnesia, and the rare but devastating phenomenon of transient global amnesia. For 9 years, I've helped patients navigate the landscape of lost memories, teaching them techniques to reconstruct their personal histories when their brains have failed them. I've published 23 peer-reviewed papers. I've given keynote speeches at international conferences. I've been interviewed by the New York Times about breakthroughs in memory research. But this morning, I woke up in my apartment and couldn't remember how I got home last night. I'm standing in my kitchen now, staring at my coffee maker, trying to reconstruct the previous evening with the same clinical precision I'd use with a patient. I remember being at the hospital. I remember my last patient session at 6 p.m, a woman named Carol Winters, 63 years old, with early onset Alzheimer's. She cried because she could no longer remember her grandchildren's names, could barely recognise their faces in photographs. I remember feeling that familiar helplessness that comes with this work, the knowledge that I can teach coping strategies, but I can't stop the inexorable progression of her disease. I remember finishing my case notes. I remember shutting down my computer. I remember walking to the parking garage, my footsteps echoing in the concrete stairwell. And then, nothing. A blank space where the next 8 hours should be. I check my phone. It's 7:15 a.m. on a Thursday in October. The weather app says it's 53 degrees and overcast. Typical New York autumn. According to my activity tracker, the one I wear religiously to monitor my own health, physician, heal thyself, I arrived home at 11:47 p.m. last night. The tracker shows I walked 2,147 steps between leaving the hospital and getting home. My heart rate peaked at 142 beats per minute around 9:30 p.m, suggesting either physical exertion or significant emotional stress. But I have absolutely no memory of those steps or that elevated heart rate or those missing hours. I tell myself this is stress. God knows I've been under enough of it. I've been working 12 to 14-hour days for the past 3 months, covering for my colleague Patricia, who's on maternity leave. The hospital is understaffed. When isn't it? And the neurology department has been hemorrhaging attending physicians to private practice positions that pay twice what Mount Sinai offers. Sleep deprivation causes memory consolidation problems. It's well documented in the literature. But this doesn't feel like a normal gap. This feels like someone reached into my head and surgically excised 8 hours of my life. I check my credit card statements on my phone, searching for clues. Last night, at 8:15 p.m, I made a purchase at a restaurant called The Meridian in Greenwich Village. $83.47, including tip. I've never heard of The Meridian. I don't remember eating dinner. I don't remember being in Greenwich Village. My hands are shaking as I set down my phone. This is more than stress. Something is wrong. I'm about to call the restaurant when my phone rings. It's the hospital, my colleague Marcus Chen. Nora, where are you? Your 8 a.m. patient has been waiting for 25 minutes. I look at the clock. 8:27 a.m. I'm never late. Never. I'm sorry, I'm on my way. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Are you okay? You sound off. I'm fine, just overslept. But I'm not fine. I arrive at the hospital 43 minutes late. My patient, Michael Brennan, recovering from a traumatic brain injury, is understanding, but I can see the concern in Marcus's eyes when he pulls me aside after the session. Nora, you look exhausted. Are you sleeping? Not enough. Too much on my plate. You need to take some time off. You're working yourself into the ground. After Patricia comes back, Just 3 more weeks. That's what you said 3 weeks ago. He's right. But I can't take time off. Not when patients are waiting. I'm fine, Marcus, I promise. But as I'm sitting in my office reviewing patient files, I notice something that makes my blood run cold. There's a file on my desk I don't recognise. A new patient intake form filled out in my own handwriting. Patient name, James Hollow. Age, 42. Initial consultation, 10/15/2025. Chief complaint, dissociative amnesia following traumatic event. Today is October 16th, which means I saw this patient yesterday. I open the file. Inside are detailed clinical notes, written in my own handwriting. 10/15/2025, 4 hours p.m. Initial consultation patient, presents with dissociative amnesia following undisclosed traumatic event. Reports memory gaps of 6 to 8 hours duration. Exhibits high anxiety, mild paranoia. Denies substance use. No history of psychiatric illness. Brain imaging completed 3 months ago. Unremarkable. Patient is highly educated, articulate, demonstrates insight into his condition, but is resistant to conventional therapeutic interventions. States he has found an alternative treatment that may be more effective. Discouraged patient from pursuing unproven treatments. Patient insisted. Assessment, dissociative amnesia, likely post-traumatic. Recommend standard protocol, though patient unlikely to comply. Dr. N. Reeves. I read the notes 3 times. They're in my handwriting. They use terminology I use regularly, but I remember none of it. I check my calendar. Yesterday at 4 p.m, I had an appointment labelled JH Initial Consult. I remember nothing. My hands are shaking. I need to see the security footage. In the security office, Derek pulls up footage from yesterday afternoon. At 3:55 p.m, I see myself approaching my office door. A man arrives. Tall, dark hair, expensive suit. We shake hands. We enter my office together. At 4:47 p.m, the door opens. The man leaves. 30 seconds later, I follow, standing in the doorway, watching him walk away. And on the footage, I look wrong. My posture is off, as though I'm dizzy. I'm leaning against the door frame, one hand pressed to my temple. I stand there for 90 seconds, staring down the empty hallway. Then, I go back inside. At 5:12 p.m, I emerge with my coat and bag. I walk to the parking garage. At 5:23 p.m, I get into my car and sit without starting the engine for 7 minutes. At 5:30 p.m, I drive away. Is that what you needed? Derek asks. Yeah, thanks. But I'm not okay, because the woman in that footage is me, but she's also not me. I return to my office and find something in my medical bag that doesn't belong. A small white card with an address, 2847 Van Brunt Street, Brooklyn, NY 11031, and handwritten, "Come tonight, 8 p.m. The answers you're looking for are inside the room. JH." That night, against every instinct, I drive to Brooklyn. The address leads to a renovated warehouse near Red Hook. No sign, just a heavy metal door. I knock. The door opens immediately. James Hollow stands in the doorway, looking exactly as he did in the security footage. "Dr. Reeves, thank you for coming. Please, come in." "I should call the police," I say, but I'm already stepping inside. The interior looks like a high-end private club. Exposed brick, modern furniture, soft lighting. And in the centre of the space, standing alone like a piece of modern art, is a door painted entirely matte black. "That's the room," James says, "but before I show you, there's something you need to see." He leads me to another door, this one normal, wooden. He opens it to reveal a small observation room with a one-way mirror. Through the mirror, I can see into the room. A woman is sitting in the centre, maybe 40 years old, well-dressed. She's perfectly still, eyes open but unfocused. As I watch, her body suddenly jerks, as though she's experienced an electric shock. Her lips move, forming words I can't hear. Her face contorts. Terror, then grief, then something like peace. "What is this?" I whisper. "Watch," James says. We stand in silence for 90 minutes. The woman in the room goes through what looks like a condensed lifetime of emotions. Crying, screaming silently, laughing, rocking back and forth. Finally, she stands and walks to the door. It opens. She emerges into the main room, and I can see her clearly now through the observation window. She looks different, peaceful, empty, like someone who's just had major surgery and is still under the influence of anesthesia. "Come," James says. "You can talk to her." We leave the observation room. The woman is standing in the main space, looking around as though seeing it for the first time. "Hi," I say, using my clinical voice. "My name is Dr. Nora Reeves. I'm a neurologist. Can I ask you a few questions?" The woman looks at me with unfocused eyes. "Sure." "What's your name?" Lisa Henderson." "Lisa, can you tell me what you were just doing?" She blinks. "Doing? I don't know. Was I doing something?" "You were in that room for 90 minutes. "What room?" I point to the black door. She looks at it with no recognition. "I don't remember being in any room. I remember I came here because..." She trails off, confused. "Why did I come here?" I pull out my pen light. "Lisa, can you follow this light with your eyes?" I conduct a rapid neurological assessment. Her pupils react normally. Her eye movements are smooth. No signs of stroke or seizure. "Lisa, what's the last thing you remember before right now?" She thinks. "I remember driving here, parking, and then nothing. And then I was standing here talking to you." "You don't remember the past 90 minutes?" "No. Should I?" I turn to James. "What did you do to her?" "I didn't do anything. The room did." Lisa looks between us, increasingly agitated. "What's happening? Did something happen to me?" James's expression is gentle. "Lisa, you came here voluntarily. You signed a consent form. You entered the room to address a personal matter. The process is complete. You're free to go." "But I don't remember." "That's the point. The room helps you forget what you came here to forget. Your car is where you parked it. You should go home now. You'll feel disoriented for a few hours, but by tomorrow morning, you'll be fine." Lisa looks at me as though I might provide a different answer, but I have no answers, only questions. After Lisa leaves, I turn to James. "You need to explain, right now. What is the room?" "Sit down, Dr. Reeves. This will take some time." Chapter 2. The Observation. James doesn't launch into explanations. Instead, he pulls up his laptop. "Before I tell you anything, I want you to see something. You're a scientist. You need data before you'll believe anything I say." He turns the laptop toward me. On screen is a video player with dozens of files organized by date. These are recordings from the room, taken with the consent of every person who entered. "Watch." He clicks on a file dated 6 months ago. The video shows a man entering the room, maybe 50 years old, wearing business casual clothing. He sits in the chair. For the first few minutes, nothing happens. He just sits, staring ahead. Then his body language changes. He leans forward as though listening to something. His lips move. He's speaking to someone who isn't there. Suddenly, he stands and backs away from the chair, hands raised defensively. He's shouting, I can't hear what, but his face is contorted with rage and fear. He swings at something invisible. Then, he collapses into the chair, sobbing. This continues for 2 hours. Rage, fear, grief, resignation, peace. When he emerges, his face is blank, peaceful, empty. James clicks on another file. A young woman, maybe 25. Similar pattern, sitting, then reacting to invisible stimuli, then emerging, empty. Another file. An elderly man. Same pattern. He shows me 12 recordings, all different people, all the same basic progression. Enter the room, experience something intense and invisible, emerge peaceful but amnesic. What are they experiencing? I ask. Their suppressed memories, their buried traumas, the things they came here to forget. That's not how memory works. You can't externalize internal experiences. You can't interact with memories as though they're physical objects. Can't you? James closes the laptop. Dr. Reeves, you study memory. You know that memory isn't a recording. It's a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, you're rebuilding it from fragments stored across your brain. What if there was a space, a specific environment that could access those fragments and make them tangible, not physically real, but experientially real? You're describing something that violates every principle of neuroscience. Am I? Or am I describing something neuroscience hasn't caught up with yet? He stands and walks to a file cabinet, pulls out a thick folder. I've been documenting this for 5 years. Brain scans of clients before and after, psychological assessments, follow-up interviews. I'm not a scientist. I inherited this place from my father, and he inherited it from his father. But I've been trying to understand it. He hands me the folder. Inside are dozens of fMRI scans, PET scans, psychological evaluations. I flip through them. The brain scans show something interesting. Decreased activity in the hippocampus and amygdala after exposure to the room. These are the areas associated with memory consolidation and emotional processing. This could be explained by drugs, I say. Benzodiazepines, certain anesthetics, they can cause anterograde amnesia and decreased emotional response. Check the tox screens. I flip to the toxicology reports. Clean. No drugs detected. These could be falsified. They could be, but they're not. Dr. Reeves, you're a scientist. I'm giving you data. What does the data tell you? I study the scans more carefully. The pattern is consistent across all subjects. Significant decrease in activity in memory processing regions, but no damage to the structures themselves. No signs of trauma or chemical intervention. This is unusual, I admit. It's impossible according to conventional neuroscience. But it's real, and you experienced it yourself yesterday. What? You came here yesterday. You entered the room. You spent 3 hours inside. When you emerged, you couldn't remember what you wanted to forget. You also couldn't remember being here at all. That's the side effect. The room doesn't just target the specific memory. It temporarily disrupts your entire memory consolidation system. Why would I come here? Because you were desperate. Because you had something you needed to forget and conventional therapy wasn't working. What did I want to forget? James looks at me with something like pity. I don't know. That's the point of the room. Complete privacy. Whatever you experienced inside, only you know. And now you don't even know. I stand up. This is insane. I need to leave. Of course, you're free to go any time. But Dr. Reeves, he pauses. You're here again? You came back even though you don't remember your first visit. That suggests something. Maybe whatever you wanted to forget is still bothering you on some level your conscious mind can't access. Maybe you need to go in again. Absolutely not. Then go home. Try to sleep. See if the missing hours bother you. See if you can live with not knowing what happened. If you can, then you're stronger than most. But if you can't, he gestures toward the black door. It's always here. I drive home in a state of shock. Everything James showed me suggests this is real, or at least something is real. But it can't be. Rooms don't have the power to manipulate memory. That's not how neurology works. Unless it is, and I just don't understand the mechanism yet. At home, I pour a glass of wine and open my laptop. I start researching. Memory deletion techniques, targeted memory disruption, sensory deprivation and memory, dissociative states and amnesia. I find articles about research into memory reconsolidation, the theory that when you recall a memory, it becomes temporarily unstable and can be modified or even erased. There are studies using propranolol to disrupt fear memories, research into MDMA-assisted therapy for PTSD, experimental uses of transcranial magnetic stimulation to target specific neural patterns, but nothing like what James described. Nothing that suggests a physical room could cause targeted amnesia without drugs or technology. I'm about to close my laptop when I notice something in my browser history. Yesterday, at 7:42 p.m., I visited a website, Silver Lake Care Facility, Memory Care Services. I don't remember visiting this site, but according to my browser, I spent 17 minutes on the page, clicking through photos, reading reviews, looking at pricing information. Why would I be researching memory care facilities? I click through my recent history. More searches from yesterday evening. Cost of Alzheimer's care, New York. Medicaid coverage for memory care. Legal responsibilities for elderly parents. DNR orders for dementia patients. My hands start shaking. I search my phone for recent calls. Yesterday at 8:47 p.m, I called a number I don't recognize. The call lasted 4 minutes. I dial the number. Silver Lake Care Facility, how can I help you? I hang up immediately. Why was I calling a care facility? Why was I researching Alzheimer's care? And then a memory surfaces. Not complete, but fragmentary. Like seeing something through fog. A hospital room. A woman lying in a bed. Grey hair, confused eyes. Someone saying, Dr. Reeves, your mother's condition has progressed significantly. No, that's not right. My mother is dead. She died 5 years ago from pancreatic cancer. I was there. I held her hand. But the fragmentary memory feels real. More real than my conscious recollection. I'm having a panic attack. I recognize the symptoms. Rapid heartbeat, shortness of breath, feeling of impending doom. I use the techniques I teach my patients. Breathe slowly. Ground yourself in the present. Identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch. But it doesn't help, because I'm starting to suspect that something is very, very wrong with my memory, and the room might be the only place I can find answers. Chapter 3. The Red Herring. I don't sleep. At 4 a.m, I'm still at my laptop, searching through my files, my emails, my photos, looking for evidence of what I might be trying to forget. And I find something. In my work email, dated 3 months ago, there's a message from Dr. Raymond Chen, the chief pathologist at Mount Sinai. Subject line: Confidential Patient Death Review. I open it with trembling hands. Nora, I wanted to update you on the Marcus Holloway case. As you know, the autopsy revealed he died from a ruptured cerebral aneurysm. Based on the autopsy findings and the review of his medical history, there's a strong possibility this could have been detected during his consultation with you 6 days before his death. The family has not been informed of this potential diagnostic oversight. Given our friendship and the fact that this was likely an unavoidable missed diagnosis, aneurysms can be asymptomatic until rupture. I've written the official report to emphasize the unpredictable nature of his condition. However, I wanted you to know the full truth. Whether you choose to disclose this to the family or to hospital administration is your decision. I'll support whatever you decide. Ray. I stare at the email. Marcus Holloway. I remember the name. Young man, 28 years old, came to my clinic complaining of severe headaches. I examined him, ordered basic imaging that came back normal, diagnosed him with migraines, prescribed medication. He died a week later. And according to this email, I might have missed the aneurysm that killed him. I search my records, find Marcus Holloway's file. My notes are thorough, detailed examination, documented reasoning for the migraine diagnosis. Nothing that would suggest malpractice. But if Ray is right, if a more thorough workup could have caught the aneurysm, I killed him. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but through oversight, through not being thorough enough, through the thousands of small decisions a doctor makes every day that usually don't matter, but sometimes mean the difference between life and death. I keep reading my emails, find another message from Ray dated 2 months ago. Nora, the Holloway family accepted the death certificate without questions. No autopsy report was requested beyond the summary I provided. As far as they know, Marcus died from an unforeseeable medical event. I know you're struggling with this. If you need to talk, I'm here. But from a medical legal standpoint, this case is closed. Ray, I don't remember reading these emails. I don't remember struggling with this decision. But as I sit here at 4 a.m., fragments of memory start surfacing. Lying awake at night, thinking about Marcus Holloway, wondering if I could have saved him, wondering if his death is my fault, looking up malpractice attorneys, not to defend myself, to turn myself in, drafting a letter to Marcus Holloway's family. I need to tell you something about your son's death. Never sending it. The guilt growing, metastasizing, consuming every waking hour. And then, 3 days ago, finding James Hollow's website, reading about the room, about people who needed to forget unbearable guilt, calling him, making an appointment. It's starting to make sense now. I didn't come to the room to forget my mother. I came to forget Marcus Holloway, to forget that I might have killed a patient through negligence. And it worked. For 3 days, I didn't remember, didn't feel the guilt, didn't wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about a 28-year-old man who died because I wasn't careful enough. But now, the memory is back, and it's unbearable. At 8 a.m., I call in sick to work, only the 3rd time in 9 years. Then, I drive to Mount Sinai and go directly to the pathology department. Dr. Raymond Chen looks surprised to see me. Nora, I thought you were out sick today. I need to talk to you about Marcus Holloway. His expression changes. Okay, come into my office. Once the door is closed, I sit down and say, tell me the truth. Could I have saved him? Ray sighs. Nora, we've been over this. We have? He looks confused. Yes, multiple times. We had a long conversation about this 2 months ago. I told you that while a more aggressive workup might have caught the aneurysm, there's no way to know if it would have been treatable at that stage. These things rupture without warning. You followed appropriate diagnostic protocols. I don't remember that conversation. You don't... He studies me carefully. Nora, are you okay? You look exhausted. I'm fine. I just need you to tell me again. Did I kill Marcus Holloway? No. An aneurysm killed Marcus Holloway. You missed a diagnosis that many doctors would have missed given his presentation. That's not the same as killing someone. But if you'd been more thorough, you might have found the aneurysm. Or you might not have. These things don't always show up on standard imaging. And even if you'd found it, there's no guarantee he would have survived surgery. Aneurysm repair is high risk. He might have died on the operating table. I want to believe him, but the guilt feels so real, so overwhelming. Why don't I remember talking to you about this before? I don't know, but Nora, I'm worried about you. You look like you haven't slept in days. You're having memory problems. Maybe you need to see someone, a psychiatrist, a therapist. Maybe. But I don't leave to see a therapist. I leave to dig deeper. I spend the day investigating Marcus Holloway, pull his complete medical file, review my notes, look at his imaging, and I find something that doesn't match Ray's story. The brain scan Marcus had 6 days before his death, the one I ordered, shows a small anomaly in the anterior communicating artery. It's subtle, easy to miss, but it's there. I take the scan to the radiology department and show it to Dr. Sarah Kim, one of our best neuroradiologists. Sarah, can you look at this scan? Tell me what you see. She studies it carefully. When was this taken? 3 months ago. And the patient? Died a week later from a ruptured cerebral aneurysm. She points to the screen. This could be an early stage aneurysm, or it could be a normal anatomical variation. Honestly, without contrast imaging, it's impossible to say definitively. But I should have ordered contrast imaging. Maybe. But if the patient presented with standard migraine symptoms and no other red flags, basic MRI is appropriate first-line imaging. You can't order every advanced scan for every headache patient. Insurance won't cover it, and you'd be running tests on hundreds of people to catch one anomaly. But in this case, with the benefit of hindsight, yes, contrast imaging might have revealed a clearer picture. But that's hindsight. At the time, you made a reasonable clinical judgment. I thank her and return to my office. The guilt is consuming me. I can't think about anything else. I can't focus on my current patients because I'm obsessing over the one I couldn't save. This is why I went to the room, to make this unbearable guilt disappear. And it worked for 3 days. But now it's back, and it's worse than before because I know there's a way to make it stop. At 7 p.m, I drive back to Brooklyn, back to the warehouse, back to James Hollow. He's waiting for me when I arrive. Dr. Reeves, I thought you might come back. I remembered what I wanted to forget. A patient I might have killed through negligence. A young man named Marcus Holloway. I need to forget again. James gestures for me to sit. Before you go in, you need to understand something. The room doesn't just delete the specific memory you're targeting. It disrupts your entire memory system temporarily. And with repeated exposures, the disruption becomes more severe. I don't care. I can't live with this guilt. Are you sure this is what you wanted to forget the first time? What else would it be? I don't know, but people often think they know what they want to forget, and then the room shows them something deeper, something they've been avoiding. The guilt about Marcus Holloway is unbearable. That's what I need to forget. James studies me. Okay, but I want you to know, every time you enter the room, you lose a little more. Not just the memory you're targeting, but adjacent memories, context, the ability to feel certain emotions deeply. One of my clients entered the room 17 times. By the end, she couldn't remember why she started coming. She'd erased so much that she'd lost the ability to understand her own grief. 17 times? Why would anyone... I stop. How many times have you been in the room? James' expression changes, becomes vulnerable, broken. 17 times, he says quietly. Chapter 4. James's confession. Sit down, James says. Before you go in again, I need to tell you something. About why I run this place. About why I understand what you're going through better than you think. We sit on the leather couches, and James begins to speak. 5 years ago, I had a daughter, Emily. She was 7 years old. Beautiful, brilliant, the centre of my universe. I was divorced. My ex-wife and I shared custody. Emily spent weekends with me. He pauses, his hands trembling slightly. One Saturday in July, we went to Lake George. It was hot, and Emily loved swimming. We found a quiet spot, away from the crowds. I was supposed to be watching her, but I got a phone call. A business call. Very important, or so I thought. I told Emily to stay close to shore and turned away for just 5 minutes. I can see where this is going. I want to stop him, to spare him the pain of telling me. But he continues. When I finished the call, Emily wasn't where I left her. I called her name, looked around, started walking along the shore, thinking maybe she'd wandered off. Then I saw something floating in the water. His voice breaks. They found her 20 minutes later. The autopsy said she'd been underwater for at least 15 minutes by the time I started looking. If I'd noticed immediately, if I'd started searching right when she went under instead of finishing that goddamn phone call, she might have survived. James, my ex-wife, blamed me. Rightfully so. She got a restraining order, told me I'd killed our daughter through negligence. She was right. Every word was true. I killed Emily because I cared more about a business call than watching my 7-year-old daughter swim. He stands and walks to the window, looking out at the Brooklyn street. I couldn't live with it. The guilt was destroying me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, started having panic attacks. My therapist suggested medication, but pills couldn't touch this. Nothing could touch it. So you came here, to the room. My father had died 6 months earlier. He'd left me this place, told me it was a family legacy, told me to keep it running, but never told me why. After Emily died, I understood why. He'd been running this place for 40 years, helping people forget the unbearable. And you used it yourself. The first time, I forgot Emily's death for exactly 12 hours. Then the memory came back, crashing down like a wave. So I went in again, and again. After the 5th time, I started forgetting other things too. Details about Emily's life. Her laugh. The way she said, "Daddy." I was erasing not just the trauma, but the love. He turns back to face me. After the 17th time, I stopped. Not because I'd made peace with her death, but because I couldn't remember her face anymore. I'd erased so much that Emily had become an abstract concept, my daughter who died, rather than a real person I'd loved. I look at her photographs now and feel nothing. Not grief, not love, just a distant acknowledgement that this child used to be important to me. That's horrifying. It is. And that's why I tell you this before you go in again. The room offers relief, but the cost is your humanity. Every time you erase grief, you also erase the love that made that grief meaningful. Every time you delete guilt, you also delete your moral compass. Keep using the room, and eventually you'll be free of all pain, but you'll also be free of all feeling. I sit in silence processing this. Why do you still run this place? If you know how destructive it is, because closing it would mean admitting that what I did to myself was wrong. And if it was wrong, then Emily died for nothing. I destroyed my ability to grieve her for nothing. I can't accept that. So I keep the room open and I tell people like you, this will cost you more than you think. But I don't stop them. Because maybe they're stronger than I was. Maybe they can use it once and walk away. But most people can't. No, most people come back. And back. And back. Until they're as hollow as I am. He walks to a file cabinet and pulls out a folder. I've been documenting everyone who uses the room, not to exploit them, but to understand the long-term effects. Want to see what happens to people who keep coming back? He shows me case files, follow-up interviews. Client A used the room 6 times over 2 years. Now reports feeling disconnected from life. Can't form deep emotional attachments. Describes feeling like I'm watching my life through glass. Client B used the room 11 times. Now in psychiatric care for severe dissociation. Can't distinguish between real memories and false ones. Questions whether any of her past is real. Client C. Used the room 3 times. Committed suicide 6 months after the last session. Suicide note. I erased so much that I forgot why life was worth living. This is what you're offering people? I ask, horrified. This is what people are choosing. I give them warnings. I show them consent forms. I tell them about the risks. But when you're drowning in unbearable guilt or trauma, you'll grab any lifeline, even if you know it's going to drag you under eventually. So you're just, what? Documenting the destruction? I'm trying to understand how to stop it. I'm collecting data, hoping that eventually I'll figure out how the room works and find a way to help people forget trauma without losing everything else. But I haven't figured it out yet. All I have is case after case of people who thought they could handle it and couldn't. He closes the folder. So now you know. You can go into the room again. You can forget Marcus Holloway and the guilt you feel about his death. But you need to understand, this won't be the last time. The guilt will come back, and you'll come back. And eventually you'll be like me, someone who can't remember why they started grieving in the first place. I stand up. I need to think about this. Take all the time you need. The room will still be here tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. It's always here, Dr. Reeves, waiting for people like us who can't live with what we've done. I drive home in shock, but instead of going to my apartment, I find myself driving to Mount Sinai. It's 11 p.m. The hospital's quiet. I use my badge to access the records department. I need to verify something. I pull Marcus Holloway's complete file, death certificate, autopsy report, all of it. And I find something that makes my blood run cold. According to the official record, Marcus Holloway is alive. There's no death certificate, no autopsy report. The file ends with my last consultation note, dated 3 months ago. Patient prescribed sumatriptan for migraine headaches. Follow up in 2 weeks if symptoms persist. No follow-up visit, no death, nothing. I search the hospital database more thoroughly. Look for any patient named Marcus Holloway who died in the past 6 months. Nothing. I search obituaries, social media, any record of a Marcus Holloway, age 28, dying from a cerebral aneurysm. Nothing. He doesn't exist. Or, more accurately, the death doesn't exist. Which means the guilt I've been feeling, the medical error I've been obsessing over, the unbearable memory that drove me to the room. None of it is real. Chapter 5. The real truth. I return to James Hollow's warehouse at midnight, bang on the door until he opens it. Dr. Reeves, what's wrong? Marcus Holloway, he's not dead. I just checked the records. He's alive. The entire thing, the medical error, the death, the guilt, none of it happened. James looks at me carefully. Are you sure? I'm a neurologist. I know how to read medical records. Marcus Holloway is alive, which means the memory I've been struggling with is false. Come inside, James says. Once we're inside, he pours me water and sits across from me. Dr. Reeves, do you know what a defensive memory is? A false memory created by the brain to protect against something more traumatic. Exactly. Sometimes, when a real trauma is too unbearable to process, the brain creates an alternate trauma, something painful but more manageable. You focus on the false trauma and avoid confronting the real one. So, Marcus Holloway is a defensive memory? I think so. I think you came here 3 days ago to forget something real and unbearable. The room deleted that memory. But your brain, trying to make sense of the guilt you still feel on some level, created Marcus Holloway as an explanation. A false but plausible reason for the pain. What's the real memory? I don't know, but I think you do, somewhere deep down. And I think you need to go back into the room, not to forget, but to remember. I thought the room makes you forget. Usually, yes, but occasionally, when someone enters the room while they have a defensive memory active, the room strips away the false layer and exposes the real memory underneath. It's intensely painful. Most people can't handle it, but it's the only way to know the truth. I look at the black door. Everything in me is screaming to leave, to accept the false memory of Marcus Holloway, to live with manageable guilt about a medical error rather than face whatever the truth is. But I can't, because I'm a scientist, and scientists need the truth, even when it destroys them. Okay, I say, I'll go in, one more time, to find the real memory. Are you sure? No, but I'm going anyway. James opens the door to the room. Dr. Reeves, whatever you see in there, whatever you remember, know that you can survive it. You've already been surviving it. You just didn't know what you were surviving. I step into the room. The door closes, and the real memories begin. The room is silent, empty, waiting. I sit in the chair and close my eyes. And then it starts. The ND,